and welcome everybody to this week's episode of the Gridiron Lion Show. I am Casey Kreider. With me on Zoom once again is Zachary Stephen Rhoda. And Zach, here we are. It's the final week of the regular season, week 18. How we doing, my friend?
We're feeling great as always, Casey. It's been quite the season, but here we are, and I couldn't be any more excited to get into these games with you.
It's been quite the season. It's been quite the week, obviously, for the NFL. Obviously, our thoughts and prayers are still with Damar Hamlin. Very scary thing that happened on Monday night. Were you watching that, Zach, as it happened? Because I was watching that live. That was just,
I had the game on, and I wasn't paying full attention when it happened. I just looked up, and I remember seeing I had the TV muted, and I saw Josh Allen's reaction where he's doing that, and I just assumed it was to a play or something. But then like 10 minutes later, when I go back to watching the game wasn't even on. It was all the players going to the tunnel, and then it was like Booger McFarland and a few others just sitting around the table explaining the situation and talking about, and they were taking a while before they actually explained what happened. So I had no idea what they were talking about. They kept saying like there's no way this game resumes, and they keep playing. Like all their thoughts are with him at the moment, and there's no way this game will be continued tonight. And the whole time I'm thinking, what happened? Like, was it just a super scary injury? And then you go on social media, you can't find a post that isn't talking about it. And it got to a point also where it's like, yes, this is horrible, but like I had to just stay off social media for a bit because it's a very sad, like just disturbing subject matter, but it's also starting to at the same time look a lot more positive if you've seen the news as of late.
yeah, that's the biggest thing is it was really scary there for a couple of days, especially when he was still in the hospital. Obviously, had to have CPR just to be resuscitated, which is wild. You never think about something like that happening in the NFL. But yeah, we're recording this on a Thursday afternoon, so as of last update, he's awake in the hospital and he's actually responsive and kind of communicating with his family and with doctors. So that is the absolute best news of all. Um, and the number one priority, of course, before anything football related. With that being said, now that it does seem like he's getting better, thankfully, the focus kind of turns back to football and what happens with that game. And it sounds like from every report that that game is not going to be made up. And the NFL is kind of exploring different options about what to do for the playoffs, how to affect the seeding. Because this was, I mean, the thing about it, Zach, is this happened not just in any regular, ordinary game. This happened in prime time. Everybody was watching, on Monday Night Football. And not just that, it's one of the biggest games of the year with the Bills and the Bengals, obviously, two really good teams fighting for the number one seed in the AFC. So it has a lot of impacts on what the playoff picture might look like. And the NFL's trying to figure out now how to kind of go through that, with the game likely not to be played. Um,
Completely. They were promoting the hell out of that game. Watching the Rose Bowl, which I'm sure we'll get into after this,
yeah,
they kept cutting back to live footage throughout the game saying, "Hey, make sure don't tune away just yet. We've got a really big game about to happen shortly." And then that went on to happen, and yeah, like you said, everyone was wondering, and even I was still wondering, how is this game going to be made up this late in the season?
yeah. That's the thing. There's been a lot of discussion about what they're going to do, but it does sound like the game won't be made up. That's at least the report that I'm seeing. A lot of sources are saying that. Honestly, there's a chance, like maybe even while we're recording this episode, some news could break on what the NFL decides to do. Because one of the options I saw they're considering is they're actually considering expanding the playoffs by an extra team in each conference. So potentially having the top eight teams from the AFC and the top eight teams from the NFC get in, which would really kind of change things up. It would take away the first round bye for whoever would get it. But we'll see what happens with that.
Steelers make it.
Well, they might make it regardless, which we'll get to
Oh yeah.
later in the episode. But yeah, of course, now that Damar seems to be doing better, obviously continuing to send our thoughts to him. But um, at the end of the day, now that's done and over with, and hopefully never happens again, we can move on to the final week of the NFL season. Before we do that, though, Zach, you did bring up the Rose Bowl. We got to talk about that. Penn State, Utah in the Rose Bowl, and Penn State picks up a pretty dominating victory, particularly in the second half, to beat Utah, avenge their loss against USC a couple years ago, and take home the Rose Bowl in Sean Clifford's final game. I know you and I, Zach, were both watching that closely. What are your takeaways from that game?
What a time to be a Penn Stater. What a great game that was. We were blessed with not only one massive play with that Nick Singleton run, but then the touchdown pass to who was that? Keandre Lambert Smith? Dude, I saw apparently that was the longest touchdown pass in Rose Bowl history.
Yeah, which is crazy
And
to think about.
what a way for Sean Clifford to go out on top. That's awesome. You love to see it. And then also, I'll be honest, the first half I was kind of worried a bit when what's his name? Cam Rising, is it? When he was in, we could not bring him down. We were getting pressure, but he was running his ass off. He was just so good at evading pressure. But then he went down with the injury. And once I saw that backup quarterback have a few drives, the game just everyone knew, all right, he does not have the escapability of Rising. And you could just watch the game slip away from them. And Penn State's offense then started to heat up. Defense just fed off the momentum. And it got to a point in the fourth quarter where it just was not even close anymore.
Yeah, it's interesting to see, like, it's interesting to wonder like what might have happened if Cam Rising hadn't gotten hurt, because yeah, before that, I mean, it was a completely different game. It was, I think it was tied, or Penn State was maybe up by 3 when he got forced out with that injury. But like even before then, I mean, it was back and forth. Both defenses played pretty well for the first half. We got a couple big takeaways. Obviously, the one with the interception by J.R. Brown late in the game kind of sealed things for Penn State. But yeah, seeing Sean Clifford play like that, I mean, he had a great game. You kept kind of waiting for that notorious Sean Clifford, "What are you doing?" type throw, and it never came.
It
Uh,
never did.
yeah, and he had a great game. It was cool that he got the opportunity to kind of get a curtain call at the end, have the Penn State fans salute him. Obviously, he was very emotional coming back to the sideline, but that was really cool to see. And cool to see, for a guy like Sean Clifford, who I know we've talked about on this show, and I know obviously Penn State fans have very differing opinions about him, and he's very polarizing, but I don't think anybody was upset to see Sean have the success that he did, and obviously get to experience that moment in his last game for a guy that's been around for so long and meant so much to this program over the past couple of years.
And let me just say this. For a team that went into the season unranked, to finish as winners of the Rose Bowl with your only 2 losses all season being to 2 teams that were in the college football playoff, which both those teams just so happened to lose. So we were the only team of those 3 from the Big Ten to come away with a victory this week. It's
Yeah.
an impressive season.
I'm just saying that Ohio State field goal miss, the best ball drop ever.
Yes.
Right at midnight. No one was watching the actual ball drop. We were watching Ohio State's hopes and dreams slip away right in front of them. It was beautiful.
It was. It was timed up perfectly. Yeah, that was those were crazy games, by the way. TCU able to, like, I didn't think TCU stood a chance of beating Michigan. And
That's that's what I was thinking the whole time. I kept saying, I just want a good game, thinking that Michigan was gonna blow them out and TCU wouldn't keep it close. And then TCU got the first touchdown. I'm like, okay. And then they got another one. And then the score started to get out of hand. And I was like, oh my gosh, Michigan. Now the concern is, can Michigan make it a game? Which they did. But I mean, TCU shocked a lot of people, including myself. And I mean, if they end up dethroning Georgia, that's going to be crazy.
yeah, I mean, I don't think anybody really gave TCU much of a chance. I mean, like, yeah, they're a cool story and all, but like, I don't think anybody thought they'd actually have a chance to go in and beat Michigan and now have an opportunity against Georgia. And Georgia had to make a big comeback too. I mean, they were down by I think 14 in the fourth quarter to Ohio State, and they came back and somehow with Stetson Bennett and that offense were able to get the points necessary. They were two very high scoring games. I know the first game, what was the final score of the first one? It was 51 to 45 TCU over Michigan, and the second game was 42 to 41 Georgia over Ohio State. So they were just crazy games. And yeah, the national championship is Monday now. We probably won't have another show before that. So Zach, who are you picking? Georgia, TCU? Who's gonna get the win?
I got to go with Georgia. I think hopefully it's a close game, but as shocking as the last game was for TCU, I can't see them doing it again against Georgia. Also, considering the fact that Harbaugh kind of has a history of choking in massive games. So they still had an amazing season nonetheless. But Georgia, they're just a completely different beast that TCU is going to have to take on.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to be rooting for TCU. But
Agreed.
I don't think it's if I had to pick, I'm going to say Georgia. I think mainly I just think their defense, even though they didn't look good against Ohio State, I still think that defense has the capability to be a game changer at any point. And I mean, you saw TCU. I mean, they forced a couple turnovers, but they really couldn't stop Michigan. It was just the turnovers that were really the difference in the game. So obviously, I think it's going to be whichever defense plays better is probably going to give their team the best chance to win. But yeah, I got to say Georgia. I think they're too good, and I think they're a bad matchup for TCU. Although, granted, I thought Michigan was a bad matchup for TCU, and they still found a way to win. I'm hoping it's at least a close game. But yeah, I agree. I think Georgia's probably going to get the dub and become back-to-back national champions. If I had to put any money on it.
Also, another thing is I forget the exact record, but if you look at is it Stetson or Stetson?
Stetson.
If you look at his record with Georgia, it's insane. It was like 20 something to one or two.
Yeah,
And I feel like he's one of those quarterbacks that's extremely underrated and always kind of flies under the radar when talking about really good college quarterbacks.
yeah. He does. I think he's I don't want to compare him to like Jimmy Garoppolo because I feel like he's a little better than Jimmy Garoppolo. But like he's kind of that type of quarterback where like he's just very good within the system. He's got a lot of great players around him, but like he can also still make the throws like that you need to make to try and win a game. So I don't know.
I think he's just a winner.
Yeah, that's my thinking. Yeah. I don't know what his future is in terms of like NFL and stuff like that, but certainly at Georgia he fits in pretty well with what they're able to do. So
You know what? I'm going to say it.
oh,
I think TCU has a very real possibility of pulling this one out. If
I
both
could
those
see that happen.
teams play exactly like they did in their semifinal games, I think TCU wins it. Because if you look at, I agree that Stetson Bennett's winning record with Georgia is insane, but also look at the rest of his roster. And he's known for sort of throwing little lollipops up in the air. And that's how TCU beat Michigan, is that JJ McCarthy is JJ McCarthy and was throwing the ball to the defense more than his offense. So if they can get a couple really big defensive plays, let alone some pick sixes, I think they have a real shot.
I think it's possible. I don't know. I think
It's definitely like less than 50% gonna happen.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna mark it down that I think TCU makes it happen.
Okay.
Partially
I would
just
love to see that
disagree
happen.
with both of you.
Fair.
understandable. Yeah. I mean, I'll be rooting for you to be right, but I just don't think you will be. But
If TCU wants to win that game, though, they have to play how they played last week.
Yeah,
Because Georgia's
Oh yeah,
defense
no,
is
definitely.
better than Michigan, and Michigan has a damn good defense.
they do. They do. I was just surprised that I mean, they had to kind of abandon the run game, but they just couldn't get much of anything going against TCU, and the run game is really what they're kind of built on. So either way,
I honestly think Ohio State would have had a better shot of beating TCU than Georgia, just because Ohio State is so offensively minded that I think they would overwhelm the TCU defense to the point that it didn't matter if they got a pick six or whatever. Their offense is so high powered that I think they would overcome that. And TCU's offense is not good enough to score on any playoff ranked defense. So like when watching the Georgia Ohio State game, I was really rooting for Georgia to win. One, because they're not Ohio State, and two, because I think TCU has a better shot against Georgia, who's a much more balanced team, than Ohio State, who's just all offense all the time.
yeah, that's true. I think, yeah. Either way, I think there's holes for TCU to try and exploit against Georgia, but Georgia obviously is established as being that team, being that defending champion, and they'll try to see if they can make it happen again on Monday. Now, with that being said, Zach, we got a lot of NFL to talk about. I think we should get to it. Before we get to this week, I don't know if there's any specific games we really need to talk about from last week. We'll probably go over most of them when we go through our games this week. So with that being said, voice of God, now that you've made your return for this week 18 episode, can you tell us what Zach and I's records were from last week? How did we do with the game picks?
All right. So in week 17, this is going to be a shocker to everyone, but Zach won. Zach had 11 correct and 4 wrong. Casey had 9 correct and 6 wrong. Obviously, both those numbers are one short of what they really should have been, but you can't exactly score the Bills Bengals game. So I just didn't count it for anything. Um, so yeah, with that, Zach's lead grows ever larger. Zach is 18 games ahead.
Which is kind of unfortunate when there's only 16 games left in the season.
Yeah, so Casey, you're doomed. You have 0 shot of winning now.
Yeah, it was coming.
Unless
been
we do
coming
the
since week 1.
playoffs, unless we do the playoffs, and I pick
Even
like
then.
the last wild card team to just win every single game, and then no, even that wouldn't work though. You know,
Even then, Zach, you can't lose at this point.
Yeah, it's over. It's
Even trying, you wouldn't be able to lose.
we fought the good fight, but it's not gonna happen. I don't think.
comment down below what Casey's punishment should be, everybody.
Honestly, yeah. I mean,
We could honestly do
And
that on the
after we
social
get no
media.
one giving us any answers because no one makes it this far into an episode, we're gonna figure it out ourselves.
Yeah,
We could do it on the Instagram.
We could.
we'll come up with something, I'm sure. Jeez, I'm scared. Yeah, I just got unlucky with some of those picks. I mean, some of them, well, most of them were ones we both got wrong. I guess the Seahawks finally learned how to play defense again, and I don't even know how you pick Cardinals Falcons. Those two teams are like decimated at this point, but oh well, is what it is. All right, so with that being said, let's get to the topic of conversation. Who are going to take, wow, who are, that's not grammar, I don't think. Who is going to take the final couple playoff spots in the NFL playoff picture? Zach, let me go through. I'm going to be a pain in the butt to Jace. I'm going to start by going through, like, let's just go through quickly the games that don't really have any playoff significance to them. We can just say who's going to win, maybe talk a little bit, but like not as much as the other games. This game's on Saturday, but really the only significance here is Chiefs Raiders. If Kansas City wins, they're automatically the 1 seed. They're probably, I mean, they might end up being the 1 seed regardless. Um, and they're gonna win. I mean, there's no way Kansas City loses to Jarrett Stidham, who somehow actually looked good last week, but like I don't see that continuing. I think Kansas City's going to take care of business, and they will be the top seed in the AFC.
Uh, yeah, give me the Chiefs. They'll lock it up as well. If they have something to play for, they're gonna win this one. The
Yeah,
Raiders, it's Jarrett Stidham. No one saw that game being one of the greatest games of the entire season.
yeah.
But I'll tell you
No,
what, this game is not gonna be the greatest, like one of the best games this season. So give me
yeah.
the
I don't
he's not
think.
gonna put up that performance again.
I don't see Jarrett Stidham making that happen again. Obviously, Derek Carr. Yeah, he's going to be a story in the offseason because there's no way he's back on the Raiders next year. But the Raiders, I guess, have to figure out who their QB of the future is, and it's probably not Jarrett Stidham. So,
Can I real quick?
yeah,
We'll go into this further like later in a different episode when we actually talk about the draft. Mark it right now. I predict the Raiders to take Will Levis.
really, honestly,
I can so see them on that team
I kind of can too.
with because they're gonna keep McDaniels as their head coach, and I always compared Will Levis to Tim Tebow. It's literally gonna be the same thing. They're gonna draft him again,
That's
and
true.
it's gonna be such a reach for him.
That's interesting. Yeah, I think that could happen. That'll be something we'll keep an eye on, I'm sure. But we'll see what ends up happening with Derek Carr too in the offseason. All right, let's do Ravens Bengals. Um, Depending on what the NFL decides with the Bills Bengals game, there's a chance this game could still have an impact on the AFC North division. But either way, both these teams are in the playoffs anyway. And I think either way, the Bengals are probably going to win. It doesn't sound like Lamar Jackson's going to play this week. And I think Cincinnati, even after everything they've been through this past week, they're still just too good of a team. And they also lost to the Ravens earlier in the year, so they're going to be out for some revenge. And I think they'll take care of business and get the win.
I agree. And after last game, eh, the Bengals they played barely the first quarter, so they're gonna be much more like well rested and prepared going into this game. Yeah, they'll win this one.
For sure. Vikings Bears. This is wow. This is the Nathan Peterman led Bears, by the way. This is not going to be Justin Fields. So
That
if
is news to me.
if the Bears did have any chance of winning this game, they don't anymore. Give me the Vikings. They're 11-0 in one score games this year, and this is not going to be a one score game.
Give me the Vikings as well. They're gonna be making that push for the number one seed, knowing that Philly could maybe lose this week. I really hope not for my sanity. But Vikings, I mean, this is a game for them where it's very winnable and playoff seeding's on the line. They have something to play for.
The Vikings, I don't think the Vikings can be the 1 seed any longer, but I think they can get as high as the 2 seed. It just depends on what happens with the 49ers as well. So we'll have to see and keep an eye on that. Um Next game is let's do Buccaneers Falcons. Neither of these teams have really anything to play for. The Buccaneers, despite Zach and I's prediction against them, we I guess we learned to never count out Tom Brady again because somehow he always pulls this shit out at the end of the season. Um, but give me the Bucks. Even if they don't play Tom Brady, I think they'll find a way to get the win over a Falcons team that's kind of rebuilding. And Desmond Ritter finally got his first win last week, but I think Tampa will take care of business. They'll finish with a winning record, and Tom Brady's gonna do Tom Brady things again.
I completely agree. I think the Buccaneers are going to want to go into the playoffs like on a positive note and just carry on the momentum with a win streak. So they'll win this one.
That would be my prediction. Panthers Saints. The Panthers obviously coming off a loss last week. The Saints coming off the big win over the Eagles. This is actually tough. This game doesn't matter at all, but like I actually don't know who I'd pick to win this. I think You know what? Give me New Orleans. I think they'll get the win. I think Carolina is going to be a little shell shocked after their loss last week, and I think New Orleans got some momentum by beating Philly. It seems like they've found some sort of a formula. Both these teams are still playing hard for their head coach, but I think the Saints will get the job done.
Hmm. Give me the Saints as well. I was thinking Panthers. I think this will. It's not going to be a game that people are really going to care about watching unless you're a fan of either of these teams. But I could see this being a close, entertaining game. Both these teams, despite their records, have kind of played up to the teams that they've faced in the latter half of the season. I
Yeah.
mean, with what I saw the Saints do against Philly last week, yeah, it's hard to pick against them.
Yeah,
But also the Panthers have been playing well. Last week was kind of an exception, but I think it will be a good game.
we'll
So
get Eagles in a little bit, but yeah, that was an impressive win last week for the Saints to try and keep their playoff hopes alive. Ultimately, it didn't end up mattering because the Bucks got the win anyway, but they're at least trying to end the season strong. All right, Texans, Colts. The Houston Texans are going to ruin their opportunity at the number one pick because they are going to beat the Colts. The Colts are literally the worst team in football. Their record might not say it, but they are terrible. So give me Houston.
wait, wait, say that again? Ruin their
Well,
chance to get the first overall pick?
so if Houston wins and the Bears lose, the Bears get the number one overall pick in the draft. Which might not matter because it's like they're not going to pick a quarterback, obviously.
That's what
But
I was about to say. I was just thinking, I was wondering who the other
somebody
team
like
was because I had in my mind already, all right, Bryce Young's so going to be a Texan.
he
But
probably will be anyway. But I think, I mean, the only thing is that it opens up an opportunity for someone to like trade with the Bears and jump ahead of them. But like, I don't know. We'll see.
give me the Texans.
You're not.
They're like one of those teams where their record is atrocious, but they somehow have played better than the Colts, especially these past few weeks. And with Nick Foles going down, is it Sam Ellinger still
Yeah.
starting?
Yeah.
Also, can we briefly acknowledge the Thibodeau play? Dude, I hate that. What an asshole.
That was pretty bad. That was pretty bad. And like he even doubled down on it. Like like he had a chance. Like they interviewed him this week about it, and like he even kind of like he was like, yeah, I hope Nick Foles gets better, but like I'm paid to be a savage and sack the quarterback. Like he just that
And
man
then
just care.
yeah, that also pissed me off. And did you see also how then he was like, I don't know who Jeff Saturday is, or he's like, who's Jeff? It's like, dude, shut up. You know who he is. It's literally the coach of the team you just played.
Yeah.
Like he was just I just thought he was annoying.
Yeah, I
But anyways, Texans are gonna win this game. The Colts are just a train wreck right now.
ripped to Jeff Saturday's head coaching career. All right. 49ers, Cardinals. Give me the Niners. I mean, the Cardinals are barely even a football team anymore at this point.
Yeah, I don't even know who's starting at quarterback for them currently,
Uh,
but
it's
it's
gonna be
not gonna matter.
it's gonna be David Blau, but like that's one of those things you just shouldn't know. Like he's like their fourth string quarterback, but yet here he is. Uh,
Yeah, Niners are winning.
Speaking of different starting quarterbacks, Cowboys Commanders. Sam Howell is going to make his first career start for Washington on Sunday. I don't know if it mattered to begin with. Dallas is going to win this game, even on the road. They're Washington after how demoralizing last week's loss was for Washington. Can we like talk about that for a second? The fact that Ron Rivera puts Carson Wentz in, ruins their season just like we knew he was going to. And
Everyone knew that was going to happen. Literally everyone.
exactly. And it's just and then apparently like in his post-game press conference after the game, like he didn't even know that they could be eliminated from the playoffs. Like they were talking about that and he was asked a question. He was like and like he didn't even know that they could go from being in the playoffs when the day started to being eliminated before the week even ended. But yeah, that's a pretty bad loss for Ron Rivera. He's gonna have to do some rebounding from that.
Washington moment.
Literally, yeah. So anyway, you picking Dallas too?
There's no way I can't.
Yeah.
Especially them knowing that there's a scenario where they still win the East.
Yeah.
Dallas is gonna destroy them, I think.
Yeah.
Sam
Yeah.
Howell in his first career start. It's not a good week for him to do it. But at the same time, if he comes in and wins this game, he literally is a prophet. I will I will love him.
Well, I
I
mean,
am the biggest Commanders fan this week.
this is his opportunity, and probably the only opportunity he's going to get to prove to the Commanders that he can be their starting quarterback. So we'll see if that ends up happening or not.
Also, let me real quickly say to kind of piggyback off of that, I think last week that might be the last time Carson Wentz ever is a team starter.
I agree. I was thinking the same thing. Like I don't know where he goes from here. Like you start out your career in one place and you go from being the MVP of the league to just sucking. Then you get traded somewhere else and proceed to suck. And then you get traded somewhere else and proceed to suck there. Like you can only go so many places and be a failure so many times before nobody's going to want you anymore. And that's kind of where Carson's at.
He's still probably going to be on a roster, although I'm not sure because of the contract that he's still on, which is another thing. Is he just going to stay on Washington? Do they even want him as a backup? Is the Colts didn't. They
I
had him 1 year and they didn't even want him on the team anymore.
I have a feeling like Washington or somebody's just going to have to eat a ton of cap and they're going to have to like just completely restructure his deal and then he'll go somewhere else probably and be a backup, but like he's not going to be a starter somewhere without a doubt. So anyway, we'll see what happens for Carson going forward. Chargers Broncos, give me the Chargers. That's all I have to say about that.
Same. We've already wasted enough breath on the Broncos this season. There's not much more to say.
4-13, baby.
We'll
That's
see how they play after Russell Wilson does his routine overhaul.
Mr. Unlimited.
Apparently, this season proved that he is
Unlimited.
limited.
Thank you, Jace. All right. So those are all the games that really don't have any meaning whatsoever. Now let's kind of go through the rest of the games that we have, and these are the games that actually will decide who makes the playoffs and who doesn't. Of course, assuming that we stay with a 7-team playoff in each conference, and don't expand that. Here is what we've got. Saturday night, Tennessee and Jacksonville for the AFC South, Zach. And the Titans are going to be starting Josh Dobbs against Trevor Lawrence and the Jags. Dobbs played on Thursday night against the Cowboys, but this is going to be interesting. Look, we've been talking about it. The Titans have been really struggling the past couple of weeks. The Jaguars are really hot. I don't really see any way Jacksonville doesn't win this game. I think they're just too good, and I don't think Josh Dobbs is going to lead the Titans to the promised land. So, yeah, give me Jacksonville. I think they're going to get the win. They'll win the division, and Trevor Lawrence is going to make the playoffs for the first time in his career.
I agree that the Jags are going to win. I will say that the Titans have a much better chance starting Dobbs because from what we saw from Malik Willis, he's just not ready as a passer. And already in one game, Dobbs looked way more confident throwing the football and like more than doubled his yards.
Yeah.
They have a better chance with him, but the Jaguars are just on fire right now. And I'm thinking about who they could potentially maybe upset depending on playoff matchups, not whether or not they're gonna win the division and lose to the Titans. They're gonna win this game.
No, I agree. I think they'll be in good shape and they'll find a way to get the job done. And they will play either the Chargers or the Ravens, I think, is the most likely outcome for them. But they will.
I think they could if they played the Ravens,
Yeah, they might. Yeah,
they could win that.
I
And
agree.
then the Chargers, who knows? With how consistent they can be at times, they've been better as of late, but you
Now,
never
I
know.
will say the Titans have a lot more to play for in this game. Um, if Tennessee wins, they're in. If they lose, they're out of the playoffs altogether. So they either win their division or they don't go to the playoffs. Whereas Jacksonville, technically speaking, has a way into the playoffs even if they lose.
That's true, but that would need like four things to happen, And
Yes,
that's
they
like,
need Miami, the Patriots, and Pittsburgh all to lose,
which is going to be tough. Which
and then they get a wild card spot.
yeah, I don't think the Jags will be relying on that. I think they're going to come in knowing that like we got to win this game to make the playoffs and win the division, and I think that's probably what's going to end up happening. But
I also would not be shocked if Derrick Henry was unleashed and just had one of those games where he went off.
that is possible. Yeah, I mean, like he's going to have to be their offense for sure. So
I'm
we'll,
rooting for the Jags just because I think that young Jags team with Trevor Lawrence would at least be more exciting to see in the playoffs than the
yeah.
Titans with Dobbs.
Oh,
And we've seen them in the postseason the past few years. I want to see what the Jaguars can do.
I completely agree. All right. Steelers, Browns. Oh my gosh. Zach, who are you picking for this game?
Give me the Berg. They're going to close out the season on a positive note. And I'm not picking Deshaun Watson for reasons. So Steelers, I can't pick against them. I've been picking them a lot more recently, and they keep winning.
Yeah.
This
Good man,
team
Zach.
is just
Good man.
they just keep getting better and better. And I've watched Kenny Pickett throw 2 game-winning touchdowns now, back-to-back weeks. I think they'll win this. Browns games have been low scoring, and I've said this time after time. Steelers, all if you look at most of their games, they're low scoring, and if they are low scoring, those are the ones that they're winning.
Yeah.
If the defense keeps it close, because Kenny Pickett's not going to throw 3 or 4 touchdowns.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
just not going to happen. But the offensive line's getting better. They're running the ball better. Najee had 100 plus yards last week. They're a young team. Everyone knows that. But things are finally starting to click for them. And whether or not they make it into the playoffs, they're at least ending the season on a good note and moving in the right direction for next season. So
Oh, this is going to be the most painful thing I think I've ever had to say on this show. Zach, Jace, the Pittsburgh Steelers will not only finish the season with a winning record, they will make the playoffs.
Yeah, cry about it. Cry about it.
What happened? I've been there. I mean, this team was 2-6. Like, I don't understand how it happened. I don't understand how they got here. I don't understand how Kenny Pickett suddenly looks like the second coming of Jesus and Najee Harris looks like a rookie again, but here we are. And despite just, wow. I remember my preseason take on this team, and I was really confident that it was going to be right. And for a lot of the season, it looked like it was going to be right. And here we are. Yeah. Steelers are going to be 9-8, and based off the results of other games, which we'll get to in a minute, they're going to get the 7 seed and they're going to make the playoffs. And I'm going to be sad because the Steelers are going to make the playoffs, and the Browns or the Broncos are going to be 4-13 and sitting at home. That's
can we really be too surprised though? If you just look, Tomlin's a great coach. They all play so well for him. And like if you make it this far into your coaching career, you have to have a losing record. I mean, that's not easy.
no.
And yeah, they started off in
Yeah.
a bit of a hole, but TJ Watt was injured and he came back, and you immediately saw the impact that he made and that he's been making his entire career. If he was playing in a couple more games, their record would probably be a bit better.
Yeah.
And it would be less surprising.
I just it makes no sense that this team is 8-8 other than Tomlin. Like the talent on this team, they've got some talented pieces, but like a lot of the year, like they've been inconsistent. Like obviously Kenny Pickett's had an up and down season. Najee Harris started out really slow and now is finally kind of rounding back into form. Like it's just
I think the team's just young. And
yeah.
when you have great coaching like the Steelers do, then it only makes sense that the team's going to get better as the season goes on. And that's exactly what we're seeing.
I figured they'd get better. I just didn't think it was going to be this much better. because like they actually look like they could be a threat maybe to like some teams in the playoffs, like if they can make it. So, oh,
We'll
Steelers,
see.
Oh,
congratulations.
sucks to be you, Casey.
That's why they play the games. You never know what's going to happen, but that's my prediction anyway.
That's
All
why the
right.
Broncos spent how much money on Russell Wilson?
Too much.
Too much.
Probably about, yeah, I'd say 6 or 8 times too much with how well he's playing.
True.
He does have more touchdown passes than bathrooms in his house now.
It took him 17 weeks. 17 weeks to get over 12 touchdowns.
we've crossed over the landmark for the year. Oh my gosh. Yeah. That's depressing. Anyway, all right. Patriots, Bills. So here's
Broncos are going to win the Super Bowl, though, right?
next year maybe.
That's the worst prediction I've ever made in my life. Everything I said about the Broncos.
You see, you at least I said they'd go to the AFC Championship game. You went all the way to say they'd go to the Super Bowl. So
Bro, I said Rams Broncos. That is literally the worst possible prediction someone can make. And I said Russell Wilson has a dark horse MVP. I didn't have him winning MVP. And let's just say it's a good thing that I didn't bet money on any of that.
Yeah. Jeez. I don't know, man. It's been that kind of year. But Patriots, Bills, obviously it's been a rough week for the Bills. The Patriots are coming into this game as the 7 seed. If they win, they're in, but I don't think they're going to. I think the Bills are going to win this game. I think, look, it's at home. They're obviously going to have a lot to play for. They're going to want to try and win one for Damar Hamlin, obviously. He's going to be well on their minds. And I just think the Bills, they're going to come out looking dangerous, and they're going to find a way to win this game.
I completely agree. I think the Bills are just going to destroy them. This is going to be an extremely emotional game for them. And even without that situation happening, I would expect the Bills to win. But with all of that added into the mix, this is going to be a huge win for the Bills.
Yeah, I think they're going to come out. They're going to come out big for sure. And I think, New England, I think they've got a lot of issues on their team, particularly with their offense. And they got kind of lucky, I think, that Teddy Bridgewater got hurt last week in the game against Miami. And I think they're going to be coming back to earth this week, and they're not going to find a way to get the win, but we'll see what happens. In a similar situation, Jets and Dolphins. So the Jets were eliminated last week after their loss to Seattle. The Dolphins lost to the Patriots, and they also lost Teddy Bridgewater. He got hurt in that game. There's a chance he's going to play, but it sounds like it might end up being Skylar Thompson, who is Skylar Thompson. So if you're asking me to pick between Skylar Thompson and Mike White, even though Mike White's been inconsistent, I just feel like this is the type of game that he's going to find a way to win. I think the Jets are going to win this game. I think Miami, they've got too many injury issues, and they're just not where they need to be right now. They don't have the quarterback that I don't think they don't have a quarterback that I think can get them to the playoffs and win this game for them. So I think the Jets, solely because they have Mike White, are going to find a way to win this game.
I'll say this. So far, we are yet to disagree on a game.
Yeah, I know.
And this one is the closest that I've come so far. With Bridgewater, I would definitely take the Dolphins. For me, it's just hard to fathom the fact that they could end this season on such a losing streak, considering how hot they were just a few weeks ago and how a lot of people were thinking, oh, like they could make some noise in the playoffs. This is a great young up and coming team.
Yeah.
But now it's just like they're just so one-dimensional with that offense, I feel. With Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill, they both are so skilled and dominant where you can just run an offense through them. But if you have inconsistency at the quarterback position, the most important position, I mean, you can only go as far as that takes you. And I mean, if Mike White's playing for the Jets, if Zach Wilson was playing, there's no way I'm taking that team.
Yeah.
But as weird as it is, I'm gonna go with the Jets. I think the Dolphins are gonna lose out on the playoffs and just end this season on an extremely disappointing note.
I agree. It doesn't make sense. I mean, they've had such a great year, but they didn't win the games they needed to win when Tua was healthy, and now that Tua is not there anymore, like you can say what you want about him. Like obviously he hasn't always played well this year, but
They're winning with him.
yeah, he's big for that team, and not having him, I think, is a pretty big loss. So I think the Dolphins are gonna lose. They'll miss out on the playoffs, and that's gonna open the door for the Steelers to get in. But we'll see what happens.
But
Oh boy. All right. Let's start with I'm gonna go with Giants Eagles is the next game we do, just because the last two games that we have are kind of intertwined with each other. Philly is still in need of winning this game to clinch the 1 seed and clinch the NFC East. Obviously, they lost to the Saints last week, a game that they shouldn't have lost, but they did because football. So anyway, but the one plus side for the Eagles, well, there's a couple actually. They're likely going to get Jalen Hurts back, so that's big. And the Giants, it looks like, are going to be resting a lot of their starters. They don't have anything to play for. They're locked into the 6th seed no matter what. So with that, I got to take the Eagles. I mean, they're too good, and the Giants, especially if they're not even trying to win, they're not going to beat one of the best teams in the league. So I think Philly's going to find a way, especially if Jalen Hurts comes back.
We have to win this game. We cannot go into the playoffs on a 3-game losing streak after choking the division to the Cowboys. That is losing this game and the Cowboys winning, which they're most likely inevitably about to do. That would be a nightmare situation for how just amazing the season has been for the Eagles up to this most recent landslide events. But yeah, the Eagles are going to win this. Getting Hurts back is huge. Minshew played great against the Cowboys, I thought. And then last week had one of the worst games I've seen in a while. And that pick six at the end, dude, I had to just turn off the TV. There's 3 minutes left in the game, but that was just the backbreaker right there. But this team is completely different with Jalen Hurts. He was doing it all season and has yet to have a game where we lost because he was a liability. And I think him being back into the lineup is just going to rejuvenate this team, light a spark, and then we'll go into the playoffs on an awful win. And also, like you said, the Giants have a lot less to play for than we do this week. And even if they did have stuff to play for, I think we'd win. But yeah, they're going to win this game. And if
Zach,
they don't,
I just want to propose this. The Giants sit all their starters, all backups playing, and they somehow beat Philadelphia. What then?
oh, then I literally expect us to lose in the first round. There's no, I don't want anyone to say Eagles Super Bowl because no.
That would be
If we want to do anything in the postseason, like literally even just win a game, this is if you lose this game, I don't want to hear anything about the playoffs.
Yeah. That would be sad. I mean, yeah, I mean, obviously, like you can understand the loss against Dallas without Jalen and a really good team, but like that loss against New Orleans, especially at home too, like that was definitely pretty concerning. I feel like even though you didn't have Jalen Hurts, and that definitely made a difference, like there's still other issues I think this team's got to kind of figure out.
What would seeding be then? If Cowboys won the division, we would go from being the first seed down to what, like
You'd be
fifth or
five.
sixth?
5. Mm-hmm. You'd be the 5th seed.
Oh my God. Yeah, let's hope that does not happen.
Yeah, I agree. Well, I think the Eagles will take care of business, but we said that last week, so you never know.
We need that extra bye week for all of our injured players to rest up because we have so many dudes who are right on the brink of playing, but you don't want to rush them back just yet. Like Josh Sweat last week went down with a really scary injury. Seemingly he had to get stretchered off. But I'm hearing he's already back in the building and could play as early as this week.
Yeah.
So
we'll see what ends up happening. All right, 2 more games that we have on our docket. And they're both kind of intertwined with each other. I'm going to start with Rams Seahawks because here's the situation. If the Seahawks win this game, then the Lions are eliminated from playoff contention. So even if they beat the Packers, the Seahawks would get in. If the Packers win, they're in no matter what. The Lions need to beat the Packers and have the Seahawks lose. So the Seahawks are playing the Rams. Obviously, they're pretty decimated by injury. I don't have a lot of reasoning for this, and I'm gonna make all the Seahawks friends that I'm fans with, or fans that I'm friends with, really mad by saying this. I think the Rams are gonna win this game. This to me kind of seems like I don't think Seattle's as good as they were earlier in the year. They played really close with the Rams when they played the first time, and I think the Rams are better now with Baker Mayfield. And I also think Baker's going to be playing with a little something to prove. He's going to have a chip on his shoulder. I don't know if I can really justify it. I just feel like the Rams, they're going to make enough plays on defense and on offense, and I expect them to at least force Seattle to be out of sorts enough to the point where I think the Rams are going to win this game and keep the Lions' playoff hopes alive.
Rams are going to play spoiler. They're going to play upset. And I have the Rams winning this game as well. I was thinking the same exact thing. I think this is going to shock a lot of people. And with the playoffs right there within reach, I see the Seahawks just choking it and Baker having a really good day and the Rams just winning a game that really doesn't mean much to them besides just pride and ending the season well after all the misfortune that they went through with injuries and just even when they had dudes healthy, just not getting wins. But the team much too late to really have an impact on overall picture with playoffs. The team started to somewhat turn it around, like they dropped 50 plus on a team you're quite familiar with.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, they're playing a lot better ever since acquiring Baker Mayfield, and I think they're going to win this one. I don't see the Seahawks. I had them winning last week against the Jets, but I don't think they're going to go back to back wins.
Sorry, Gino. I think Seattle's got too many holes, and I think their run defense is going to be a big issue for them as well. So I think the Rams are going to find a way to win and make it so that Packers Lions, the final game of the regular season, is going to be a win and in game. Either the Lions win and get in, or the Packers win and get in.
Casey, I'm gonna cut you off on this one.
Okay.
So you guys have been really boring, and not a single game you guys picked differently. So I'm gonna force you to pick this one differently.
Okay.
So
Well, I have a team. Well, I was thinking I'm probably going to pick differently from you. I want to hear what you say first.
Both you text me individually who you think is going to win, and I will decide where we go from there.
All right, sounds good.
Because if you guys are going to pick the same team, I need to come up with a way to force one of you to have the other team as your guess. Okay, you may continue.
Oh, we picked different teams.
You did indeed.
Wow.
I knew you were gonna pick the Packers.
Okay, here's my reasoning. Aaron Rodgers is him. Like Aaron Rodgers, I have seen this movie too many times. They are just gonna find a way to pull this out of their behind like they always do. And I love the Lions. I want to root for them. I think I'd love to see them make the playoffs and win this game. But it's Aaron Rodgers. Like, he has owned the NFC North for most of his career. And I don't see any way that he's going to let this opportunity to get in the playoffs, have everything out in front of him. The team is playing as good as they've played all year. Give me the Packers. The Lions, I think they're a young team. They're coming a long way. They'll make the playoffs next year. I think they're 1 year too soon. And I think Green Bay is going to get the job done.
I agree. And honestly, I have a gut feeling the Packers are going to win this game for all the reasons you just said. But I'm picking the Lions for two reasons. One, just to be different, because I don't want every single game to be the exact same.
Yeah.
And if we do pick differently on a game, I want it to be the Lions just because if they do win this game and the Rams win, I just really want to see Detroit in the playoffs.
I do too. Trust me, I do. I really want to see them make it.
I would take Detroit in the playoffs way before I take Aaron Rodgers in the playoffs again. I think that's a good young team. I kind of view the Lions similarly to the Jaguars, who both were the top two picks in the draft. If both teams then go from picking top two to making it into the playoffs. I'm sure that's, if it's not the first time in NFL history, it's one of very few that's ever happened before. But regardless, it still says a lot about those teams and the direction that they're going in such a short turnaround.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think, look, I want the Lions to win really badly. I think the Packers, like I said, if Christian Watson's still healthy, if he plays well, they have Romeo Dobbs back. They're really getting the running game going with AJ Dillon and with Aaron Jones. And I just think I've seen this before. They're gonna lose in the playoffs. Like I don't think they're gonna beat whoever they end up playing in the first round, but they're gonna find a way to make it, I think. So we'll see what happens. A lot that's gonna happen in the NFL in the NFL this week. I guess we don't need a tiebreaker because we only picked one game differently, so it's physically impossible for us to tie.
True. Yeah.
So with that being said,
Unless the game that we pick differently on is a tie.
I'm not even going to try to get into that. That just can't happen.
Tieception.
So with that being said, I think that's going to do it for the regular season and our Week 18 edition of the Gridiron Lion. We're going to watch all the games with you at home, and we'll be back next weekend to preview the wild card weekend. But until then, for the voice of God, Jace Gibbons, and my colleague Zach Rhoda, I'm Casey Kreider saying so long, and we'll see you before the playoffs here on the Gridiron Lion Show.